So I've recently started reading a new book, well, new to me, Hagakure, the Book of the Samurai by Yamamoto Tsunetomo. And I started reading that book because I have always been pretty fascinated with uh, the character of the samurai. Actually, all ancient like specialized orders of people who were like really highly skilled, masterful, like ancient masterful people I tend to be really interested in. So I figured what I'll do is share some of the insights that I come across in this book. It's sort of live, like I'll sort of read through and reflect on some of the aspects that I find to be most interesting. Um, so I'll read a little bit of the preface. Hagakure is the essential book of the samurai, written by Yamamoto Tsunetomo, who was a samurai in the early 1700s. It is a book that combines the teachings of both Zen and Confucianism. These philosophies are centered on loyalty, devotion, purity, and selflessness, and Yamamoto places a strong emphasis on the notion of living in the present moment with a strong and clear mind. So I highlighted that because I thought it was interesting that samurai are known as these fearless warriors who can like cut you down in a single strike and all that kind of stuff. Who cut your head off and they're known for like really intense ritualistic practices like seppuku where they'll like cut their own stomachs open and things like that. But but here in the very opening of this book that is about the philosophy and life of the samurai, it's talking about loyalty, devotion, purity, and selflessness as the principal sort of ethics rather than uh, fearlessness and ambition and ruthlessness or the things that we would expect to be front and center. So I thought that was really interesting. Um, the word Hagakure literally translates as hidden beneath the leaves and also fallen leaves. Perhaps it was named this because at the time that it was written, the way of the samurai was becoming obsolete. I find that interesting. I mean, I haven't read this book fully yet. I've gone a few chapters in, and so far, I'm already suspecting that maybe, possibly one of the reasons why Hagakure or like fallen leaves or beneath leaves or something is um is kind of the catchphrase or the it's sort of thematic umbrella for the samurai people is maybe because um fallen leaves are like because this book starts out, I mean, this is only the preface, right? So when we actually get into chapter one, it'll talk a lot about how the way of the samurai is about death and facing death and having a very specific philosophy around life and death. And it seems to me like fallen leaves is some type of metaphor for maybe the temporal nature of life, that we're all sort of like leaves that are kind of just falling or I don't know. I mean, yeah, it's interesting. I hope I can gain some deeper insight on this as we're going. So those are just a few lines from the preface. I want to get into chapter one, and I mean, the first thing that sticks out is the way of the samurai is found in death. When it comes to either or, there is only the quick choice of death. It is not particularly difficult. Be determined and advance. To say that dying without reaching one's aim is to die a dog's death is the frivolous way of sophisticates. When pressed with the choice of life or death, it is not necessary to gain one's aim. Um, yeah, so it's like, okay. I mean, talk about sort of like epic reasoning, right? Um, because I mean, it's a little bit okay. So like the way of the samurai is found in death, all right? Okay, so I mean that says a whole lot because I mean, yeah, I, you have all these purity, being present, having this deep philosophy and stuff, but at the end of the day, a samurai is a trained swordsman, a mercenary, someone who is hired to protect and to enforce and to kill, and and that killing might might I mean the subject of that death might be himself, and this is something that a samurai is expected to not be squeamish about. So it makes sense from the very top to kind of bring in this idea of like, yo, the way the samurai is found in death, okay? So let's not make any mistake about this, right? It says when it comes to either or, I mean, I'm wondering if like some of this is like translation issues. There's some aspects of this that seem like maybe the English isn't really working well with whatever the translation was, but um, when it comes to either or, there is only one quick choice of death. It is not particularly difficult. Be determined and advance. To say that dying without reaching one's aim is to die a dog's death is the frivolous way of sophisticates. So it's almost like they're saying when it comes to the moment, which is what I think this either or is. It's like when it comes to the moment of truth, whatever that is. Um, Presumably it's when you're face to face with a mortal enemy, right? I mean that's at scale, right? So that's like the extreme end of it. Maybe on the lower end of the scale, it's something like saying something that you really need to say in a moment or whatever it is. So it's almost like this is talking about how a warrior is supposed to think about the moment of truth, the moment of a face off, the moment is don't hesitate and don't waste time thinking and deliberating and debating. Act. And if death is the outcome, then fine. It's okay. Don't fight to preserve life. Um, uh, it, I don't know. Yeah, don't that like the preservation of life should not be, or the preservation of one's life should not be the hook on which you hang your decision. It seems, which is, I mean, I think that's what it's saying, and if that's what it is, it's very chilling to think about that. But I can understand why someone who is living in the 1700s, who is employed as a highly trained mercenary, or someone who is meant to protect a lord or a kingdom or a village or city or something like that, or to carry out sort of enforcement or whatever it is, and is faced with death. You don't want them to be afraid of death, right? You don't want them to necessarily be reckless, but you don't want them to make a decision only based on the preservation of their life. You want them to act, to just yeah, it's an interesting thing to try and articulate. Um, when pressed with the choice of life or death, it is not necessary to gain one's aim. Um, we all want to live, and in large part, we make our logic according to what we like. But not having attained our aim and continuing to live is cowardice. That's chilling. Not having attained our aim and continuing to live is cowardice. Again, this goes into the whole, I mean, the honor code of these people, right? So not having attained your aim and continuing to live is cowardice. So if if in attaining your aim, it requires you um, to die, right, in the protection of whatever the circumstances, or in defending or mounting a defense of whatever, or doing whatever it is that you have to do in the moment when the moment arises. Um, if death be the outcome, then fine. But if you don't do that and you make a choice that preserves your life, then that life that you live is a cowardly life afterwards. Um, and it's funny because this text is very self-aware, because right after this it says, "This is a thin and dangerous line. To die without gaining one's aim is a dog's death and fanaticism, but there is no shame in this. This is the substance of the way of the samurai." Damn. So it's very self-aware. It's like you are accepting that it's like, when it comes down to it, you may indeed die a dog's death, but this is not, there's no shame. The shame is in choosing to preserve your life, living in cowardice, and having lost the whatever. I mean, yeah, lost the aim, which is, I guess, the ultimate defense or the ultimate presentation as a warrior or whatever. Um, Man, what a what an orientation speech to people who are trying to become samurai. Well, I mean, these people would have been trained in this kind of thing since they were children, right? Which I think you would have to. It's a very difficult thing to expect someone who already has a sense of their own, like, self-awareness and self-preservation to accept this concept. I think this, unless this is given to you from birth, or unless, and also this is like a widely accepted social thing. So the question here is, like, as someone reading this in the 21st century, where this is not an ideal that our society has, or our society says preserve your life at all costs, right? Generally speaking. I mean, in the service of maybe like your children, in the defense of your children, one is expected to run in front of a train, or to jump in front of a bullet, or to put yourself in harm's way or whatever to protect your loved ones. Um, but but this is pretty much where it's at. Unless you are like a secret service agent, or someone who is in special ops or the military or something like that, you're not expected to 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 think and behave this way. And I guess, to be fair, even back then, I mean, the samurai, this is a military order, so this is not something that the average person back then is expected to have a mindset of. So right now, so already, like, what this is saying is that this is a a a, a unique way of thinking. This is not the naturally occurring sort of mental emotional posture that someone has. And that's important to note. That in pursuing this way, one is going down a road very much less traveled. um, and it goes on to give a little bit more of what this philosophical mindset should include. It says, if by setting one's heart right every morning and evening, one is able to live as though his body were already dead, he gains freedom in the way of the samurai. His whole life will be without blame, and he will succeed in his calling. So, yeah, this is again, this text so far is remarkably self-aware, because because it's accepting that this is not a common way to think. So it's giving an instruction as to how one can achieve this, which is if by setting one's heart right every morning and evening, one is able to live as though his body were already dead. So this has to be a daily practice, setting one's heart right every morning and evening. So this is clearly not something that that you sort of plug into someone. You sort of have like a pep talk on orientation day, and then boom, and that's it. This is, you're expected to set your heart and your mind and around this meditation every single day, um, because you know, it suggests to me that there is a great deal of mortal self-awareness. This text, and whoever's writing this text, Yamamoto, is aware that that we are human beings, and this is, I mean, um, it's not possible to completely dehumanize oneself in this pursuit unless one does this every morning and every evening. Resetting. This is way more than I was expecting, to be honest, in reading this book. Another aspect that I highlighted was, if one is born into a prominent family that goes back for generations, it is sufficient to deeply consider the matter of obligation to one's ancestors, to lay down one's body and mind, and to earnestly esteem one's master. It is further good fortune if, more than this, one has wisdom and talent and can use them appropriately. But even a person who is good for nothing and exceedingly clumsy will be a reliable retainer if he only has the determination to think earnestly of his master. Having only wisdom and talent is the lowest tier of usefulness. That is a bar. That is a bar. By the way, this I should jump back up, because that last section started out by reading, a man is a good retainer to the extent that he earnestly places importance in his master. This is the highest sort of retainer. So this is all about like service, about placing as much of your focus outside of yourself and into the service of one's master. And by the way, I meditated a little bit more on this whole idea of the master, right? Because um, in a very literal sense, these samurai were servants, right? They were servants of whoever the feudal lord was of the area, and they pledged an unwavering obedience to him, right? So if he says, you've offended me, cut open your stomach right now, I, zip, and they have to just do it, right? So as much as we in the 21st century look at the samurai as this ultimate a picture of dominance, it really is an incredibly subservient role. And it's very interesting to think about this duality of mastery and service being found in the same, on the same, as like two sides of the same coin. And I think a lot about Christ in the Gospels, right? Because Christ talks about this too, right? Christ talks about when his disciples are arguing amongst themselves about who is the greatest among us. And Christ says, he who is greatest among you shall be servant of all. And I think this is around where he washes all of their feet. And his whole thing is in order to be great, you have to perfect the art of service to other people. You have to become, in order to be the greatest master, you have to be the ultimate servant. And it's so fitting, because Christ was a master of that kind of swing reasoning, right? Where it's like the thing is like, love your enemy, or turn the other, like do the most opposite thing that one is expected to do. You know, like a lot of his wisdoms were found in this kind of flipping something on its opposite. So this whole the greatest of you will be the one who's servant of all and who serves the best. And in contemporary rhetoric, we hear like people talk about this in reference to like prosperity gospels. People who talk about how wealth is found in service, right? That people who are very, very wealthy are people who've managed to bring value to a lot of people. You can provide value and service to a great amount of people, or you can provide value and service to people who are greatly in need of that service. Um, and people who have the money to pay for that, then you'll be wealthy. That's like a common sort of formula that people talk about in wealth creation. Um, and I think it's the same sort of thing, that mastery is found in ultimate service. Um, and when you think about anyone who has mastered something, they have had to, because again, this whole word master, right? It's this double entendre kind of thing where we talk about the master, right? So you are serving a master. In the literal sense, there's someone who is over you and who is your master and you're his subordinate or something. But in the metaphoric sense, it's like, well, what is your master? Or what are you mastery of? Are you a writer? Well then your master is writing, is the word. You're mastering that. You're in the act of mastering that practice. And that is your metaphorical master. You get up and you serve it every single day. You get up and you write every single day. You get up and you are obedient to it. You answer the call to it every single day. You you serve it with the most diligence and care and pride and all that kind of stuff every single day, as if it were your master, as if you were the greatest servant, in service to a master. These people, these men were swordsmen. These were, these guys were mastering all these types of weapons and that kind of thing. Every single day they would have to wake up and practice. They would have to practice their art every single day, and that art was their master. Hence, they became masters of that art. So, yeah. But the last little bar that I'll end this one with, because I mean we're only a few pages in, and it's already almost 30 minutes, and I mean I'm telling you, this thing is just packed with bars. But it's this last little line here. um it is further good fortune if more than this one has wisdom and talent and can use them appropriately. But even a person who is good for nothing and exceedingly clumsy will be a reliable retainer if only he has the determination to think earnestly of his master. Having only wisdom and talent is the lowest tier of usefulness. That is a bar. And I'll tell you this, right? I'll say this because I remember I remember when I first started leading like teams of people, um, as a creative director, as a manager, as a director on set and that kind of thing, um, and working in an agency and having different teams of people who had different capabilities and different um, work ethics and all that type of stuff. The people who I found to be the most useful team members were not necessarily the ones who had the greatest skills, were the best designers or the best photographers or whatever it is. It was always the people who were most enthusiastic, who showed up, who listened intently, who followed instructions, who learned quickly, who didn't have any ego, who took instruction, who asked questions, who would the ones who would check back in. I remember I used to tell my team, you know you're doing your job well when you're coming to me to ask me several questions. If I give you something to do and you just go off and you don't ask me any questions, you should worry. Don't not ask me a question. As a matter of fact, even if you don't think you have a question to ask me, just come and ask me something. Because it shows me that it develops this sense of earnestness about the work. Let me make sure that I'm doing it properly. Let me check in. Let me pay attention to the details. Let me see where I can fill in gaps that I'm missing. Yes, I have this particular type of skill, but am I applying it in the right way? Am I I don't know, whatever. So I just thought that was a bar. That was really, really interesting. And it's a really good reminder, even for myself, that when I am working with clients and that kind of thing, that skill level is one thing for sure, but also, like as it says, having only wisdom and talent is the lowest tier of usefulness. That's wild. That skill, wisdom, talent is really good as well, but thinking earnestly of who one is in service of is really the highest form of service. So yeah. All right. So the light has definitely changed because it's evening time now. So I'm going to end transmission for now, and we'll pick this up tomorrow, and I'll read some more quotes from Hagakure, the Way of the Samurai. I hope this was enjoyable and useful and interesting. I suppose I'm supposed to say like, comment, like, share, subscribe, ring the bell, do the notification, do the things, and yeah, thank you for watching.